Okay, we're live.
All right, Wayne, it's 6:30. We're ready to go. Good evening. The January 12th, 2021 regular school board meeting of Roseville Area Schools ISD 623 is hereby called to order. Clerk Anderson, could you please call the roll?
Certainly. Clerk Anderson is here. Chair Boguszewski.
Here.
Treasurer Goggins.
Here.
Director Chu.
Here.
Director Johnson.
Here.
And Director Shaw.
Here.
Great, welcome. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any adjustments to our agenda this evening?
There are no adjustments, Chair Boguszewski.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements or comments from any of us tonight? Looks like none. And do we have any community input, Michelle?
No community input tonight.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll go into our first item of business tonight. And
You do have
as
some
many
gifts.
know,
Don't forget.
oh, I'm sorry. I apologize
Sure.
for keeping me on track, Clerk Anderson. We did have gifts tonight. And Todd, I think you volunteered to share the gifts we received with our.
Oh,
Excuse me, we have
Go
our
ahead.
organization of the school board prior to our consent agenda.
oh, that's
which will
right.
cover the gifts.
That's right.
So we'll,
That's right.
thank you, Kitty. I apologize for taking us out of order there. So our first order of business is the annual meeting where we do our organization of the school board. Minnesota Statute 123B.14 states in part that on the first Monday of January of each year or as soon thereafter as practicable, the board must meet and organize by selecting a chair, clerk, and treasurer who shall hold their offices for 1 year and until their successors are selected and qualified. So we're doing that this evening. And in addition, first up will be a reaffirmation of our school board governance policies. So there are a set of policies that are in the board policy manual. They all start with policy number 200, so 200 through 226, and they deal with our governance and how we oversee the district. And so we just need to reaffirm those. I guess I'd entertain a motion by one of us to do that.
I move that the school board governance policies are reaffirmed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Todd.
And
Is
that
there
was
any
Curtis.
discussion?
I think.
Oh,
I think it was
sorry,
Curtis.
Curtis.
Sorry.
thank you, Curtis. Sorry. Any discussion around that? Looks like none. Todd, could you take the vote, please?
Clerk Anderson votes aye. Chair Boguszewski.
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
Director Johnson.
Aye.
And Director Shaw.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. We now move into the election of officers. First up is chair. The way it works, I will ask 3 times for any nominations for chair, and then we will vote. And I know that, in the past, it's just been a show of hands or even by acclamation if appropriate. But I think, as I believe we did last year, it's probably best under these circumstances to do a roll call vote also for each of these. That's what I'll ask for once nominations are closed. So do we have any nominations for chair for the coming year?
Chair Boguszewski, I would like to nominate one Michael Boguszewski for chair for the upcoming year.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair? And for the third call, are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Again, even though we have only one candidate, I think just for the record, it might be better to go ahead and do the vote. So Clerk Anderson, could you please call the roll on this?
Clerk Anderson votes aye. Chair Boguszewski.
I'll vote aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
Director Johnson.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
And Director Shaw.
I submit a grateful aye.
Didn't know you can do that.
Looks like I'm in again. Great.
Congrats, Mike.
I was thinking maybe the next round of email someone else would have to respond to, but well, we're good. I'm kidding. It's been an honor. I only hope to keep living up to what you guys might expect. With that, we'll move on to election of clerk. Do we have any nominations for clerk for the coming year?
Yes, we do, Chair Boguszewski. I would like to nominate one Curtis Johnson to be the clerk for the upcoming year.
Great. So Curtis is nominated. Do we have any other nominations for clerk for the coming year? And the third time, do we have any other nominations for clerk for the coming year? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Clerk Anderson, then possibly for the last time this year.
The last time.
Take the roll.
Certainly. Clerk Anderson votes aye. Chair Boguszewski.
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
Director Johnson.
Aye.
And Director Shaw.
Aye.
Congrats.
Congratulations, Curtis. With that, we'll move on to the treasurer. Do I have any nominations for treasurer for the coming year?
I'd like to nominate Kitty Goggins for treasurer.
Thank you, Curtis. Kitty, your name is nominated. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Third time, are there any other nominations for treasurer? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Clerk Johnson, could you please take the roll call vote?
Clerk Johnson votes aye. Director Anderson.
Aye.
Chair Boguszewski.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
Director Shaw.
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
I think that's it again.
Okay.
Congratulations, Kitty, on another year as treasurer. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for your service. With that, we'll move to the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the gifts.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk Johnson, could you take the vote, please?
Clerk Johnson votes aye. Chair Boguszewski.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
Director Shaw.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. We did have gifts again. Todd, could you share with us the generosity of our community?
Certainly. Thank you. Yes, we definitely want to highlight the wonderful gifts and the contributions of our fine community this evening. Falcon Heights Elementary School, we have a gift of some gift cards from Mara Bliss and the Falcon Heights Community Group. Those gift cards will be going to students in need. And then we have several here. Looks like going to be going to the Roseville Area Middle School. I'll start off with Mary Livingston, flute and clarinet to the band program. We have a Milt Workentian, a gift of 2 cornets for the band program at the middle school. We have an anonymous gift of a percussion set to the band program. We have a Thelma Bader, a gift of 2 flutes to the band program. Amanda Lee, a gift of a French horn to the band program. John L. Horn, an alto sax, a tenor sax, a trumpet, and a flute for the band program. And another anonymous gift of a clarinet and a trumpet to the band program. And then we do have a Trina Perkins, a monetary gift to the Leaders in Training program for our Roseville area schools. And then we have a monetary gift from Premier Banks to the Angel Fund to the Roseville area schools. Again, we want to thank our wonderful community for helping us out. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Yep. Once again, every meeting we have at least a page, if not pages full of things that people have donated and given us. So it's certainly gratifying, and we're very grateful. With that, we'll move into reports and non-action items. And first up is the pre-sale report for certificates of participation, which I think are being brought to us this evening by Business Director Sherry Thompson. Sherry.
Yes, good evening. I also have our partners from Ellers, Jody Zaspa, who you all know well. She's been with the district for several years. And then also Haley Folkholt, who is new to the team. And I'll let Haley introduce herself. I just met her last week, but yes, they continue to strengthen the team for Roseville and the organization.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks, Haley. So this evening, this is really kind of the last piece of the financial puzzle for our facility projects. Is based on the passage of the bonds back in 2017. In looking at the buildings, it was determined due to further testing that was done with the existing Fairview Community Center, Education Center, that it was a much better investment to rebuild a new facility rather than to invest in the existing facility. So the plan that was developed at that time was to use $17 million in bond funds. And then the remaining $20 million would be done through a lease levy through the sale of certificates of participation. And in order to offset that to our taxpayers, we did beginning this year, we reduced our long-term facility maintenance levy by $2 million. So that will, again, that way we don't see an overall increase in that property tax levy. So we're getting ready to set that sale up for February 9th. And Jody, she'll go through the pre-sale report, which you all have in your packet. So I'll hand it off to Jody.
Great, thanks, Sherry. So should I just kind of highlight a few things? Are you going to show anything, or what's the best way to proceed?
So if you just want to highlight a few things, they do have
Sure.
the pre-sale reports in their packets.
Perfect. That sounds great. Good evening, everyone. So I think we started talking about this Plan B. I'll call it the Plan B option, because the initial option, as Sherry mentioned, was to finance the renovations to the Fairview Community Center through the bond proceeds. And I think we, as you quickly found out that you were going to need a Plan B, we started working on some preliminary schedules in spring of 2018. So you guys may be tired of hearing me talk about the updates to these financial schedules, but this is our most recent update tonight. So as Sherry mentioned, we're going to finance about $20 million in costs through the certificates of participation, which is a method of lease purchase financing. And the proposed issue size right now is estimated at $19,750,000. Similar to some of the recent bond issues that we've done for you, we're expecting to get a premium bid. And the premium proceeds that we would receive can also be deposited into the construction fund and used for this project. The bid that we get on the day of sale will likely be different than this, but we expect it to be somewhere around the $20 million range when all is said and done. So on the first page, just a couple of things there. We are financing a portion of the replacement of the Fairview Community Center, because some of the dollars from the bond proceeds are still being allocated toward this project. The statutory authority is listed. Similar to a bond issue, there is a call date associated with certificates of participation. So they look much like a bond issue because we issue them in $5,000 increments, and they have a call date that's determined up front. And we've set that call date so that you are able to prepay on April 1st, 2030 or thereafter. On page 2, then just a couple of things on that. We will go through the rating process again. And because the bonds are, or I'm sorry, the certificates of participation are required to have an annual appropriation clause. That's by state statute. The rating agency deems those to be a little a little more risky than your regular bond issues. So instead of assigning your underlying rating, they usually assign a rating that's one notch down from your underlying rating. So that's what we're expecting to see on this bond issue. Also on that page, the method of sale, we are planning to proceed with a competitive sale, just like we've done with your bond issues. We had 5 sales for school districts yesterday and saw really nice low interest rates. So those historic low interest rates in the municipal environment are continuing, and we hope that that will be true moving forward into this sale also. The bottom of page 2 then explains that premium pricing structure that we're expecting to see on this bond issue. And I'll show you that a little bit more once we get to the financial schedules also. So just a couple of additional pieces of information on page 3. You will have a lease purchase agreement, a ground lease, and a trust agreement. Those are some additional agreements that are a little bit different from what you see when you're doing bond financing. All are being prepared by your bond counsel, Kennedy and Graven, and that is Martha Ingram, who has done your bond counsel work and will be doing the work on this, all the legal work on this transaction also. And then if you go to the other thing that I would point out is on page 4, just and in addition to working in conjunction with Kennedy and Graven, the trustee and paying agent on this issue will be Zions Bank Corporation. And they will actually hold your funds in an escrow account as you are spending the amount on the project, then you'll access that money from them. And we'll work with Moody's as the rating agency again. On page 5, then we are showing the proposed debt issuance schedule. So tonight we're just presenting you updated financial information. There is no formal action that is required for a certificate of participation. However, we think that it would be helpful for you to set some parameters for awarding the sale. Unlike bond issues, we don't always get quite as many bidders. It's a little bit more unique market. So in some cases, we've only received 1 bid, knock on wood. They've always been really nice low interest rates, but frequently we'll see 2 or 3 bidders. And just to prevent you from getting locked into a rate that we don't think is indicative of the market, in case you do only get 1 bid, we want to protect the district by setting a parameter, not to exceed amount. And we'll set it so that it's got some cushion built in. So it's likely to be higher than what we're expecting to see, but we just don't want you, we want to make sure that you're getting a fair rate. And should we just end up getting 1 bid and, you know, somebody just kind of throws a bid in without sharpening their pencil, we would like to be able to have you reject that and reconsider it on, another date. So that is the reason that we have built into the schedule that at your meeting later this month, once we're closer to the sale date and have a better sense for where the market's at, we would ask you to approve that parameter resolution. And then we'll be back to your meeting on February 9th with the results from the sale and hopefully under the parameter that's been established, and plan to close then on the financing March 9th. So just a couple of financial schedules. So the first schedule is our estimated sources and uses schedule. And these are 2 schedules that we've been showing you since spring of 2018. So this just shows you that in the end, that deposit to construction fund amount, the final line in the uses of fund section, is approximately the amount that you need from this portion of the financing to complete the Fairview Community Center project. And then finally, you'll see the estimated payment schedule. When you access lease levy financing, the state of Minnesota requires a 15-year payment schedule. So that's what we have set up for you. And that true interest cost rate in the yield statistics, that's always the number that we quote to you on bond issues. The same is true on certificates of participation. We'll award based upon that measure of the interest rate. And right now we're estimating that at a 2.66 level. So that is what our best estimate is at that point in time, at this point in time for the true interest cost rate. The annual payments are roughly $1,690,000, and that amount has already been included in your levy. So you will be collecting that lease levy amount for taxes payable in 21 for the first year, and we'll use that to finance these payments. And that's all the remarks that I have, but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Frank.
I've got what may be a naive question, and that simply is that this is like a bond issue, except what is it formally? Are we leasing this to the participants? Is that kind of what's
Yep.
going on?
Yep, and technically that trustee or lessor will hold title to a portion of the building until the final payment is made. So it's
Okay.
lease purchase financing.
I see. Okay, good. Thanks. That answers my question.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Looks like we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always and your expertise in helping guide us through all this this financial stuff. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
rest of
You're
your night.
welcome.
Thanks.
With that, we'll move on to our next non-action item, which is the attendance report for the first trimester. Grade and attendance report, and I think we're being led through this by Director of Teaching and Learning, Jake Vondelinde. Jake, good evening.
Yes, thank you for having me here tonight. And I'm going to actually have Michelle share the screen so we can walk you through the report. So again, thanks for having me here tonight. I wanted to share a bit about grading and attendance. Really just comparing our attendance and grades from trimester 1 of this year in a pandemic to last year, trimester 1, when we were in pre-pandemic conditions. So please note that the letter grades are only given in grades 7 through 12. And for the grading comparison, those are only for those students groups that are included. So I think I wanted to include this slide to provide some context as we're comparing two very different times, one in a pandemic and the other pre-pandemic. With the pandemic, it's changed so much of the way that we operate and has impacted our students and families very differently. During the pandemic, we have less control over the learning atmosphere that students are in, only the space that we have our students when they are with us virtually. And in the terms of grading, we've also been operating in a do no harm environment for our students. This means that we have to allow for more flexibility in how students show us their evidence of learning and what it looks like to be engaged in the classroom. We've worked with staff to understand the harm that a failing grade would cause a student during this time. And at the high school level, we have marked failing grades as no marks instead, providing with students with other opportunities to make up the credit. We find that many students receive zeros because they do not have an assignment completed. A zero has an inordinate impact on the grade, and we have changed that to a 50%, thus reducing the negative impact of a zero. We've also worked on providing students with the opportunity to take a P for pass instead of their given grade if it's a failing grade. Lastly, also know that there are two different school years that we're comparing, thus two different sets of students. Many are the same, but there are many changes that happen over a year in a school population, thus making it even more difficult to make some direct comparisons. So we'll go on to the next slide. And this slide shows the comparison of the grades received for students in 7th through 12th grade. And please note that it's only 7th through 12th that we provide letter grades for. So this is comparing fall of 2019 to the fall of 2020. And again, given all the criteria from the previous slide, it's difficult to make direct comparisons, but here are some of the findings and insights that I gleaned from these two, comparing these two. So in the fall of 2020, Roz did not enter incompletes, D's or F's. They were either marked a pass or no mark. So that is in this fall trimester from 2020. This is why the pass percent is way up from the previous year, with many students who chose to do a pass to hold their GPA harmless in this trimester. You can also see that the no mark increased significantly as students at Roz and Faz with F's were automatically changed to a no mark. And overall, our grade percentages were not that different from fall of 2020 to the fall of 2019 to the fall of 2020 for our grades, those letter grades A through D. However, you do see that in 2020, the percentages for grades A through D are down from 2019, with more students than you can see that have those percentages in the pass or no mark. Then we can move on to our attendance percentages. And so this is a slide comparing the district average daily attendance for all grades. And this is K through 12, which is different from the previous slide. And again, it's comparing that fall of 2019 to fall of 2020. You can see the overall that the district showed less than a 1% change in average attendance from last fall. And Roz actually had a 2.5% percentage point increase from trimester 1 last year to trimester 1 of this year. That's not, individual sites aren't shown, but that's kind of some of the data behind some of this. And most of our elementaries had about a 2 to 2.5 percentage point decrease, with some exceptions of Brimhall and Falcon Heights. And I know that just a shout out, I guess, to our teachers and our school staff who have worked extremely hard to get students engaged and to especially keep them engaged in this distance learning environment. And we have heard some really positive feedback in recent days from our elementary principals who have been doing some surveying of families that have really appreciated the work that we've done in distance learning and say that the work that we're doing is really an opportunity to continue learning and not just time lost. So that's been some positive feedback. We'll go on to the next slide, I guess. So just some of the insights that I kind of gleaned from it is, especially from the feedback that we continue to hear from our staff, is that we need to continue to provide safe spaces for learning for all of our students. We need to make sure that they continue to feel that they belong in the virtual space and that they're connected. This is not done easily virtually, but I was able to observe a high school teacher just today take students through a deep breathing and de-stressing exercise. It was Miss Williams-Freer who brought those students through this exercise this morning in her pre-AP biology class, and it was excellent. And it really helped to set that tone for learning and some of the focus. And I think that maybe I should start setting some of my meetings and starting them with that too. We continue to engage our students in creative ways with interaction. And even though they're in virtual spaces, they still find those ways to engage with students. And it's important to maintain those connections with other students and with their teachers. And I've been so impressed with how teachers continue to build classroom community, even in these distance learning and virtual spaces. Engagement also looks really different in school when we're in person than in distance learning, as obviously we all know. That also has an impact on how we do attendance. So attendance in person is often whether that student is in the classroom or not, but virtually students may show that they're attending and engaging by completing assignments, which they may complete within that class time or outside of that class time. Especially we've seen those out of school class times, or out of class time, I guess I should say, on those asynchronous days when students can engage and attend even when the teacher is not right there in the class with them. And finally, I think that the do no harm grading policies that we've worked on have forced our teachers and educators to think differently about grading and their grading philosophies. I believe that many teachers are taking this opportunity to really think about what and why they're grading, and also reconsider their grading systems to make them more equitable. I believe that the pandemic has helped us to see grading in new and more equitable ways. And I think it's something that we should continue to build on as we come back to better, especially as we bring students back to in-person learning. And our last slide is just an opportunity to ask questions or provide some comments. And I appreciate your time. So we can probably come back to our regular, yeah, there we go.
Yep, thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, thoughts? Kitty.
Thank you very much for completing this analysis. If we look at some things published from other school districts, some of the numbers look significantly different. And could you comment on the processes that we've been employing that has really helped get those attendance numbers up and helped get students engaged in terms of having a grade that's passing in the various classes?
Yeah, I would say it really starts with our teachers, right? They're their first connections, and we know that some students that we have worked with don't always stay connected or stay engaged. We had a high amount of engagement at the beginning, and you know that trails off. And so we do have a lot of supports in place to support students that we know that are losing some of their engagement or disengaging. So some of that, I think some of the work that we've done with our behavior specialists and our social workers, our school counselors, just continuing to reach out to the family, reach out to that student. Our teachers continue to do that as well. And also I think the cultural liaisons have done an excellent job of reaching out to our families. And so I think being a mid-sized district helps us to do that, so we can make that personal touch and really bring in the I mean, we know our students, we know our families, we know that we can engage them and connect with them. And so I think that's been something. We have school staff that will go out to the family's house and do kind of a wave check-in and make sure that they're doing okay. I think also part of it that we've really focused on and made important is that SEL, social emotional learning, the importance of that. And that's why I provided that example of what Miss Williams-Freer did this morning, and kind of that de-stressing and just setting that tone for learning is very important for students right now. There's a lot going on in our world beyond just the pandemic that students are stressed with and families are stressed with. And so those kind of things, I think, help us to keep that engagement with students, keep them learning. And I think some of the work around grading has done that as well.
Thank you. That's very impressive to see. And I really appreciate all the work all our staff has been doing, the teachers and everybody, because this is such critical work, because if the kids aren't engaged, obviously they're not learning. So I really appreciate the effort put in.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Jake? Curtis.
Rose can go first.
Okay, sorry, I didn't raise my hand. So Jay, you talk about how, as we talk about kind of having students come back in person slowly, how do you see the grading system or the attendance kind of shift, given that we've learned a lot about it, and it's just wonderful to hear, right, that even in the middle of the pandemic, that we can take something that we learn forward to better the learning environment. So could you speak to that?
Well, I think a lot of the harmful grading practices that we can do away with is one of the best things that we can start with and continue. So not giving students zeros when work is not completed. A zero can absolutely tank a student's grade. It's disproportionately really destroys that student's grade and that effort that they might have put into other things. And so thinking about that differently and thinking about that as an incomplete or a no mark gives that student the opportunity to come back, show that they've done the learning, and have a chance to make up that work and that grade. Because really thinking about grades as an example of learning and not just a percentage that you're getting. I think that's the important philosophy, the philosophy behind some of the work that we've been trying to do.
Thank you.
Curtis?
Okay, no questions, just a comment. In non-pandemic times, I have always been amazed at teachers, especially kindergarten teachers, what they're able to do with the kids. And I have had a number of parents come to me and tell me how impressed they are, especially at the kindergarten level, about how engaged their kids are and that they're actually able to make these connections even virtually. And that just blows my mind. You know, congratulations, you know, teachers, staff, everybody. You know, I know everybody is working really hard, you know, but it's also making a difference. So, and when we get back together again, then I think they're going to be even more prepared to do bigger and better things. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think a lot of us got a chance to see Miss Klein at Falcon Heights, who's a kindergarten teacher that just showed brilliant work with her students and that engagement, and even through some of the struggles that she's been having. So it's amazing what educators do. I'm impressed every day with how they can do this. This is a different way than we have ever done education, and our teachers are figuring it out and they know how to do it. It's amazing.
Other questions? Jake, I have one. So with all these changes and, you know, it was obviously transparent what we were doing and the opportunity to take a pass read, et cetera. How the kids responded to this? Or do they have, what do you guys see out there? Do they have an appreciation of what's going on? Is, you know, someone could say, oh, wow, don't have to get a grade. I could just pass. You know, is that perceived as a good thing, a bad thing? Or are they just kind of weathering through? Are they eager to get back? What triggered in my mind is, you know, your comment earlier that some of the teachers are, you know, discovering new ways of thinking about grading. You know, is that happening within the students too? I'm just curious if there's any perception of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a conversation about that last night at our district curriculum advisory committee that, and some of the families were sharing that the way that distance learning impacts their students is that some of their students really appreciate distance learning and that they have excelled in this format, and just really talked about how they would really like that opportunity to continue to be able to offer some of the online courses when we get back into that regular school, or whatever regular is anymore. And that is something that we're planning to do and working on, especially at Roseville Area High School, is being able to offer some more online courses as we come up and start through next year. We just are going through the registration process now, and we're planning to have some of those classes be offered online even as early as next year. We've been through it. We know how to do it now, and we believe that we can offer some of those in a different way. So it really depends on the student too, right? Some kids are just really are engaged and connected in distance learning. Some that just really appreciate that in-person, that more relational piece when you can be together. And I think families know that in this virtual environment that we're doing the best that we can to connect with those kids that really like that person, that in-person learning, and trying to replicate that the best way we can to make times for students to connect with one another too, because I think that's one of the best things about that in-person work, where students are connecting to one another, they're connecting with their teacher, and they build those relationships. So I think we're offering both of that within that structure, and it's not easy. It's taken us a while to figure out what that means, what that looks like. But again, being creative has been an asset to our teachers.
Well, it's good to hear, and it also harkens back to something that Director Chu Rose brought up a number of meetings ago. You know, while we weather our way through a very negative situation, what parts of it can we keep? What parts of it can we say, you know, wow, this really worked well. We don't have to go back just rotely to whatever we did before. Let's think about this. It's very good to see evidence of some of that. Rose, I see you nodding vigorously there. So, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, it absolutely makes us take a pause of what we're doing and really think about those things.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Frank?
Just briefly, as in the context of all this, was I have been hearing a lot of positive things, and I'm celebrating them. But in a conversation with one of the elementary principals recently, I was told that the expectation at this point, at least at the elementary level, is that they're getting across 60% of the material that they would normally get across. And so in that context, perhaps maybe we don't need to be getting as much material across in the true, in regular schooling. Or how would you respond to that particular observation? You can respond by contradicting it if you want.
Say that again, that last part.
Respond by contradicting it if you want. I'm just wondering because it's basically, and I've watched elementary teachers working on this. It's very difficult to get things across. This is not easy, and I don't know how they're doing it. But in the process, they're not getting across as much. I'm not sure if that's true at the high school level.
Yeah, I would say that is accurate. I mean, we have limited time that we can spend with our students. It's a more difficult time to do some of that and to have that actual that sustained engagement with students. The time is very limited, and so we've really tried to focus on making sure we're hitting those what we've called power standards. And that those things that we've identified that our grade level teams and that our district-wide teams have said, these are the most important things that we need students to learn to get to that next grade level or to get to that next course. And those are the things we're focusing on. And so, yes, there is some things that we've had to leave that we feel are things that are good to know. But these things that we're teaching them are the most important to know. And that actually is something that I think is going to be something that sticks as well. I think teachers have found that there's things that they maybe were teaching before that they can actually take out that gives them some more time to focus on the most important things as well.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Other thoughts? Jake, once again, thank you very much. Very enlightening, and look forward to seeing how things go for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
With that, we'll move to our next non-action item, which is Dr. Jenny Lake presenting the proposed 21-22 and 22-23 draft school year calendars. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the District Calendar Committee and Michelle Tessum for their help in this process. I'm presenting the 21-22 calendars, as you said, and the 22-23, and know they mirror each other. All the dates are corresponding, so I'll highlight the changes from the current school year, 2021, moving forward. So on the traditional calendar, there's 3 significant differences. One, the traditional MEA fall break is 1 week later the next 2 years. The 21-22 school year, it will be October 21st and 22nd. We are retaining having a no student contact day on elections. That was really positively received by our students, staff, and families. Next year, that falls on November 2nd. Also, spring break moves back a week in the following 2 years due to the number of days within the trimester. Next year, that will be the start of March 14th. And then if we look at the Harambe calendar, the year-round calendar, the significant difference is that the school community led by Principal Smith made the decision to shorten up the 4th quarter and add a week of instruction to the 3rd quarter in order to allow for more instruction and learning ahead of statewide assessments that occur in 3rd term. And again, the 2 years forward correspond with one another. And so if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jenny. Any questions, any comments? No, the only thing I'll say is I think that's great about the Harambe shift, because I know for a long time it's been an issue under the year-round calendar that there's just less contact time with kids when they take the standardized tests, and there's a feeling it's a disadvantage then to students in that environment. So it's really good. And like you, I think the board also thanks all those who were on the calendar committee. As a past veteran many years ago of calendar committees, they're not easy to slog through. So please
did
extend our
have-
appreciation to all those folks. Yeah.
Sorry, I did have a real quick question. And Jenny, I'm sorry
Go
about
ahead.
this, unless you might have explained it. I didn't understand. Back to the very first calendar, 2021-22. I might have missed this. What Friday, April 15th? What was that day again? Was that teacher workshop, or we're going to have the students start working on taxes, or April 15th?
Right.
What's
That's
that day again?
a non-student day, a traditional holiday of Good Friday.
Okay, that's right. Thank you.
Thanks. Any others? All right. Thank you, Dr. Lake.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move into our action items for this evening. First up is the learning model plan and a request for approval from Superintendent Sicoli. Superintendent, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Boguszewski. So as I think many are aware, Governor Wallace came out with an announcement in late December, I believe, that based on knowledge they have about transmissibility of coronavirus at the younger age levels and with some different strategies, really has encouraged bringing back on site of elementary students beginning as early as the week of January 18th. That day is a Martin Luther King holiday. We have no classes on that day. As you'll see in the presentation, we will be bringing a smaller group of students in that week and then start the subsequent week as we need time to match family preferences with staffing, as we'll still, of course, be running the Distance Learning Academy throughout this entire year for those who want to access that. So we're seeking your approval tonight. You'll see as we go through the presentation led by Dr. Favor and Josh Collins, what the exact plan is that we have communicated with families. And it will include some aspects in-person learning for special ed students and some Minnesota State High School League activities for high school age students. So with that, we'll turn it over to Dr. Michael Favor and Joshua Collins.
Thanks, Board Chair. Well, thanks, Superintendent Sicoli, Board Chair Boguszewski, board members, Superintendent, guests, and team. I'm going to ask that Director Collins start us off with the presentation today.
You bet. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, can folks see that? Great. So again, Dr. Favor and I are going to walk you through a few things here. To start with, I'm going to just remind you about the process that we have used up to this point on determining our learning model. Dr. Favor will outline for you the new state guidance that Dr. Sicoli mentioned, which allows us to proceed in a fashion that differs from how we have talked about this since school began in September. We'll walk through the current and projected health data, which we've done over the course of the last few months, and I'll continue to do that. And then we'll Dr. Favor will walk you through the new learning model proposal, the plan, and we'll finish with the schedule for how we intend to transition. So once again, a reminder of how we have worked to determine our learning model up to this point. We know that there may be some members of our Roseville area schools community who might be tuning in this evening for the first time. We have looked at a number of factors, including the number of positive COVID-19 cases in Ramsey County. We have engaged in consultation with public health officials and staff, looking at the effects in the transmissibility of COVID-19 on various age groups, including students and adults. We have evaluated the health and safety experiences that we have experienced in our own schools from opening, as well as reviewing what has occurred across the metro, the state, and across our country. And we need to ensure, one of the major factors is making sure that we have adequate staffing available to serve students in both a distance learning model, which we're obligated by the state to operate through the entire school year, as well as serve students in person. And then, of course, a major factor for us is feedback from our families, staff, and students. And we engage in that in a number of ways through various committees, both at the school and district level. To give you a sense of where we are at with the data right now, you can see here with the vertical line indicating where we were at our last school board meeting. Rates have dropped significantly, and as of January 10th, we are at 43.3 cases over a 14-day period per 10,000 residents in Ramsey County. Looking at the zip codes that specifically serve the Roseville Area School District, you'll see that we are slightly higher than that. As of December 31st, we were at 44.7. Now, these next two slides are going to give you a sense of how much the forecast can change from day to day. So the forecast as of January 17th for Ramsey County placed us at 54.2 cases. But one day later, you can see the forecast as of January 18th shifted to 39. This is an illustration of really just what a moving target it is and how relying exclusively on numbers like the county case rate present a challenge for school districts as they look to plan and give some sense of certainty.
Josh, could you flip back and forth between those two again just a couple times?
Absolutely. Here was the forecast for January 17th, 54.2. And just using one more day of data, you can see that that dropped into the 39. For those of you who might recall, the 50 cases per 10,000 residents was a significant number that we had been using, which would have forced the districts into really needing to be exclusively in distance learning for all students. As Dr. Favor will show on a slide coming up, the new state guidance really is taking a stronger look at the science and the reality that rates, that the transmissibility among young people is a factor to consider. Once again, I'll just close with the lagging 14-day rate that the county has released, which is at 43.97. I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Dr. Favor.
Thank you, Director Collins. As we continue our discussion, focus on the learning model, the state has asked us to prioritize in-person learning under the Minnesota Safe Learning Plan. The in-person learning really de-emphasizes the reliance on data points for our youngest learners. We are pivoting, as the state is beginning to pivot, and really focus on our knowledge and understanding of the virus based on state recommendations and data, and how we reduce the use of just a singular data point and move towards mitigation strategies, such as what we can do with our youngest learners as they begin to return, such as face shields, plexiglass, classroom spacing to mitigate the virus. The middle school, at the middle school and high school level, as we go through this plan, they will follow the same protocols and parameters and the steps 1 through 5 of the Safe Learning Plan to determine how best middle schoolers come back. This effort has really been a unique and quality collaboration between Education Roseville, our principals, and listening to our parents and students as we return, and some of the questions around safety and how best we can share strategies and what we're doing to keep people, our students and our young people safe. In the Roseville area schools, the current model is an option for parents, full distance learning for all grades and programming. Another option is we're preparing, we're going to talk a little more about this in the slides to come, how we begin to transition students back and with some possible dates and in-person services within special ed. Secondary grades still must follow the county COVID rate. I think it's essential that we continue to monitor using our data dashboard that the district has put together, that we follow the COVID rate and consider, and as we continue to pivot, we consider new guidance that's coming out from the state, again, based on science. As we submit this plan for Roseville, again, we will begin to discuss in the slides to come the elementary grades and the schedule of return, reassuring in-person special ed services, district-wide alignment of asynchronous days to Friday, district-wide, and then 3 days for planning for each grade as we begin to transition back to in-person learning. 3 days of planning for the teachers so they can work collaboratively to plan. Also a part of this is co-curricular activities with competitions happening roughly around January 14th with some guidance. Josh.
Thank you, Dr. Favor. This schedule, which I'm going to outline for you, is something that we have already shared with our families, and it's on our website. And this is in compliance with what the new guidelines are from the state of Minnesota. We are proposing to begin resuming some of those in-person special education services. Those would be services for the students for whom have the most significant needs that aren't able to be met through distance learning. We would begin those on January 19th at Emmett D. Williams and at Parkview. January 20th through the 22nd would be those transition days. Dr. Favor mentioned that each grade band will have 3 days to prepare their rooms, to prepare their lessons and ensure that they're able to meet the needs of students in person, which of course is quite different from the exclusively distance learning that we have been doing. January 25th is a Monday. That is a no school day for grades K through 8. Teachers are conducting workshops. That has been on the calendar for the entire year. But in-person special education services would resume for some of our students at Roseville Area High School on that day. On Tuesday, January 26th, grades kindergarten and first will shift to in-person learning. Now, this is also the week that we will transition the asynchronous learning day for all grades across the district from Wednesday to Fridays. This will really begin what is until spring break, an in-person schedule of 4 days per week, Monday through Thursday. And each of the grade bands, once they shift to in-person, they will begin this 4 days per week. That is also the week where we would resume those in-person special education services at Parkview for the DCD program and at Rams. On February 1st, we would begin early childhood special education classes in person. February 3rd through the 5th would be those transition days of preparation. There will be no school, either in school or distance learning on those days for pre-K and grades 2, 3, and 4. On February 8th, pre-K and grades 2 through 4 will begin in-person learning 4 days per week, Monday through Thursday. That same week, February 9th through the 11th, Harambe, which as you know is on a year-round schedule, their grades 5 and 6 will have their transition days. February 17th through the 19th, grades 5 through 6 across the rest of the district that is on the traditional school year calendar will have their transition days. And on the 22nd, 5 and 6 will begin in-person learning Monday through Thursday. March 8th, Harambe grades 5 and 6 begin their in-person 4 days per week. And then on March 15th, which is immediately following spring break, grades K through 6 in-person learning switches to 5 days per week. So there will be no asynchronous learning days at that point for grades K through 6 for those who are taking advantage of the in-person option. But the length of the school day will be shortened by 30 minutes. Now that's going to come off of the end of the school day. And this is to allow for collaboration for our teachers and for allow them to plan, because some of them will be working not only with students in person, but with students who are also in the distance learning. That's the completion of my presentation there, presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, Chair Boguszewski and the other members of the board.
Thank you, Josh and Mike. Fellow board members, questions, comments?
I just had a quick question. Great presentation, Josh and Dr. Faber. Quick question on that change to shortening the day by 30 minutes. And you might not be able to answer this. I don't know if it's a Jake question or not, but with shortening that, does that 30 are they still going to have like a what I need time during that day, or is that kind of becoming the new win time, or they're trying to? I guess I'm just trying to factor that in with going through the elementary program review, where we now have what I need time. Is that going away with that shortened kind of day, or is that kind of a new what I need time? I guess I'm just trying to wrap my arms around that.
That's a great, I think I could probably answer that, Dr. Faber, unless you want to jump in. This is really less what I need time for the students and more focused on time that is needed for teachers to both collaborate with their teams and to prepare their own lesson plans. There is, as you can imagine, a lot of work necessary, and some districts are handling this additional time in different ways. Some are choosing 1 day a week to do perhaps a late start where the day is 2 hours late. We felt that it would be less disruptive to our families to shorten the day by 30 minutes. And that would provide that amount of time, that necessary time for teachers to collaborate and to prepare, but it would have minimal impact on families. Dr. Sicoli.
Thank you.
So I think Director Anderson's question might also be wondering if we're going to lose, because of the shortened day, lose some what I need time, one time in school. And I think if I was reading my screen correctly, I think perhaps Jake was going to address that. I haven't heard anything in meetings about that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think because of a shortened day, there's going to need to be shuffling that happens. I'm not specifically sure what that will look like at each of our sites, but I haven't heard that what I need time is part of the time that's being taken away. So again, I think we're focused on our 4 day weeks right now, and really trying to get to those 5 day weeks is kind of the next step out there. We're still figuring that out.
Yep.
Yeah,
I understand. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to add also, Director Anderson, that what I need time is such an essential tool for the learning of our students, that ability to individualize. I'm sure that I haven't heard anything around going away from that time. I think it's still an essential element of the school day.
Yep, thanks.
Kitty, you had a question?
Yes, I know that we're trying to learn from families what their preferences are in terms of whether they wish to continue with distance learning or wish to come back to the in-school environment with the way it will be done in this plan. Do we have any insight yet in terms of, are we seeing a significant shift in families expressing interest in school versus the prior in-school version? Or are we seeing pretty similar breakout to the past? And of course, the follow-up question is, which I'm sure we haven't had a chance to assess yet, is whether we feel we can handle all that from a staffing standpoint.
I'll start off and then I'll ask others to chime in as well. We are currently connecting with families as individualized as possible around what specifically do they want as a return, in-person learning or distance learning academy. As we're getting and organizing those numbers, principals should have an idea by Thursday. I was in a meeting this morning where principals were discussing some of the numbers that they're receiving and anticipating the needs and what support that may need to happen from a district level around staffing. We're still organizing those numbers. We haven't received them all from all of the parents, and we're going to organize across the system. So it's not just with one school, but we're going to organize to best serve our students across the system with that data that comes in.
Aldo?
I'll just add that I believe there's interviews, I think, at the end of this week. We are trying to hire some long-term substitute teachers at the elementary level to help with this, as we think, from our experience when we were in hybrid for a while, blended learning, really the staffing was a challenge. So we're trying to broaden that pool, and in the hopes that we can do that, that should make it more likely that it will be sustainable.
Other questions or comments? Rose.
First, unmute. I would love someone to comment on how is this model being received by our teachers? What concerns they have, and what are we doing about that? Because I know that there were a lot of concerns before, and then we went to distant learning, and now with the new science, I just want to hear kind of what we are doing about that.
Well, anecdotally, what I'm getting is, there's a wide variety.
Okay.
Anytime you have as many teachers as we do, there's going to be a variety in the amount of trepidation into coming back into school. But I think one thing that served us well is we have been working hand in hand with our union leadership, and they brought concerns to us, and we've processed together along with our RTR advisory committee meeting. And we have whole committee meetings in structure in place to process issues and work through it with principals and with others. And so I think we've, at least what union leadership has conveyed to me, we're landing in a place that seems pretty good. Now, is that going to allay everyone's fears? No, but I think we've also heard from a number of people that when we were in blended learning, once we got back and started doing it, the fears went down considerably. And we're hoping the same will happen this time.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have just two. So teachers' reaction, what about parents' reaction since the announcement went out, either Superintendent Sicoli or Director Collins? I know that, for example, many parents had desired, what you've achieved now with the coordination of the asynchronous day onto Friday, because that was problematic for a lot of families. So I would hope that was well received. I just wondered if you've gotten any feedback from families since this went out late last week, either positive or negative or much at all.
So I have not had a lot of feedback. I thought I'd get more. Again, it affects families and their individual children, sometimes within a given household differently, depending on the model we use. I think it's good that, of course, the Distance Learning Academy is still an option, as that works better for some families. So, of course, our transition plan doesn't fit perfectly for every family. But I haven't heard a lot of concerns, not much at all, since we've communicated this. And I haven't heard much at all, maybe others have who are in other positions, regarding the change of the asynchronous day. So I'll yield to my colleagues if they have any information about that.
I would just say that we've heard a mix of reactions, which is, I think, to be expected. For some families, we know that Wednesday was difficult for them, and that moving to Friday may be maybe more convenient for a broader swath of people. We also know that, you know, with any change, there's going to be somewhat of a mix of reactions.
Sure.
I think it's absolutely, though, notable that this is a milestone that I think so many, both families and teachers and administrators alike, have been looking to, like we're finally talking about resuming in-person services for our students, which frankly is a pretty monumental milestone in this pandemic. And there has been just an incredible amount of work done by administrators working in tandem with our superintendent, with our school site leaders, and with parents who have been engaged in these school level committees to make this happen. So I think probably all of my colleagues here join me in really feeling a sense of enthusiasm that we're at this point. We know that there are still concerns, that we're still waiting to find out details about the vaccination schedules and that sort of thing. But this is a big moment.
Superintendent?
Yeah, so I'd like to add, I know we communicated this out, but for the public viewing, so the state requirement was to have 2 weeks in between grade bands and have no more than 3 grade levels at a time transition back. Early learners, those not yet in kindergarten, were exempt from that requirement. And so, you know, we have 3 essential from K-6 groupings because we have 1 more grade than a lot of elementary schools. And so it takes 6 weeks with the 2 weeks apart, that requirement. In those 6 weeks, I think at least 2 of them have Friday is not a school day, it's a professional development day. So what would have been an asynchronous day, they're still in school in those weeks for 4 days a week before we transition to full time, 5 days a week. So there is that we have to wait. And we started with K1 in the first group rather than K2, 3 grade bands, simply because K1 was in 4 days a week before. So we think they're used to it. We can transition our first group of students, do that more effectively, and then bring a band of 3 grades after that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, maybe I'll just close then by saying I'm pretty sure I speak for all of us when I just say thank you once again. I know we've said this so often, it may lose its meaning, but you guys and the staff and the teachers, I think, have just done a heck of a job reacting and trying to be as proactive as possible while in the middle of a game where the rules keep changing. And, you know, you get very weary of it. And I think we're all tired of it. And yet you got to keep going. You got to keep slugging around. You guys can't just like turn your back on it and walk away. You got to come at it another day with potentially a whole new set of things that you have to think of and do to meet the new requirements and the new opportunities that are presented to you. So it's breathtaking to me, the amount of effort that's going into this. And I know Dr. Sicoli, you've said not everybody's going to be happy with everything. But I'm confident, at least from my seat, that you guys are doing as good of a job as you can, given the circumstances and where we are, and trying to stay ahead of the game. So hopefully the light is at the end of the tunnel. We've all heard the vaccinations are perhaps just around the corner, and maybe there's a way out of this. So just once again, thanks and appreciation to you, the teams, the staffs, the planning committees, the parents who've been involved in all the planning work, all of that. It's just a heck of a thing to look at as we've moved through this. So thank you. With that, we will move on. Our next, oh no, I'm sorry.
No, we have to move. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's an action item.
It's an action item.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the plan as presented.
I'll start us off. Chair Boguszewski, I move the board approve the elementary learning model transition plan as presented.
Thank you.
And
Todd, are you a clerk?
No more.
Well,
And then,
excuse me.
Rose, did you second? I think Rose
I
seconded.
second that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion among the board? Hearing none. Clerk Johnson, could you please take the roll?
Director Shaw,
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins,
Aye.
Director Shu,
Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Chair Boguszewski,
Aye.
Clerk Johnson votes aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to everyone, and we'll look forward to moving ahead. Now we'll move on. Next, we have a report and request for approval of the conditions of employment for operating engineers local number 70 for 2020-2022. And it looks like Human Resources Director Lisa Chang and Business Director Sherry Thompson may be bringing this to us this evening.
Yes.
Hi, Lisa.
Yes. I just want to thank you guys for having me on here. And most importantly, I also want to thank our custodial staff and our leadership team in terms of a quick and swift negotiations. They're a great team to work with, and I appreciate them very much. I think Sherry would concur with that as well. Their official title is Cooperating Engineers Local 70. We started negotiating, myself, Lisa Chang, Sherry Thompson, and Yvonne Tolman represented the district, and we started negotiating with their team in October 2020 and concluded in November 2020. So you guys have the document in front of you. The brief summary of changes we have are we're offering an increase to the sick leave incentive, respectively to $200, $150, and $100, raising that up by $50 from the previous contract. In addition, regarding the salary schedules, 2021, they'll get a 2% increase in all steps, as well as year 21, 22, 2% for all steps. In addition, for health insurance, we agreed the district contribution to the family insurance will be increased by 2% for the family and the single plan. The negotiations falls within the budget parameters as adopted in the budget. And specifically, I want to thank and express thanks to, and on behalf of the district also, to specifically Brian Anderson, Wade Bronkowski, Alan Lardy, Nick Caballero, and their business agent, Ken Wyken, for all their work. Are there any questions?
Board members, any questions? Looks like none. Thank you very much. Oh, Kitty.
Kitty.
I was just wondering are we competitive in this area? Do we have trouble recruiting? Does this address any issues that you've had?
I think with almost every district, it's hard to find custodians. We have a great group of individuals that we work with, and I think we're taking the stride to make us a district that people want to come and work in and recruit, and so we can recruit. So I think by taking these measures and these steps, I think we're pretty competitive. They do have a really great insurance plan. So when I talk to the team in this group, they're very grateful for the insurance plan. Sherry, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you've covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lisa or Sherry? Thank you very much. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Curtis. Seconded by Kitty. Any further discussion among the board? Seeing none, Clerk Johnson, please take the vote again, please.
Director Chu,
Hang on. Aye.
Director Anderson,
Aye.
Director Shaw,
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins,
Aye.
Chair Boguszewski,
Aye.
and Clerk Johnson votes aye.
Great, approved. Thank you. Thanks for your work, Lisa and Sherry. And Lisa said, thank you very much to the leaders and the representatives of the union and the custodial engineers for working this out. I think, again, it's a testament to our collective values and being able to come to agreement with each other to do what's best for the district and our kids. Thank you very much. With that, move into our last action item of the regular meeting. If we approve it and if we move it and approve it, the school board will hold a closed session immediately following our study session this evening. The meeting will be closed as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D.03 to consider strategy for labor negotiations, including negotiation strategies or developments or discussion and review of labor negotiation proposals conducted pursuant to sections 179A.01 to 179A.25. And the purpose of the meeting this evening will be to consider strategy for contract negotiations with the superintendent. So I guess I'd ask for a motion to close the meeting per described.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Todd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Clerk Curtis, could you please call a roll vote on this again, please?
Chair Boguszewski.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
Director Chu.
Aye.
Treasurer Goggins.
Aye.
Director Shaw.
Aye.
And Clerk Johnson votes aye.
Great. We will act accordingly. With that, we're board reports. Anyone have anything they want to share off the bat?
Okay.
Curtis?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so last week, Superintendent Sicoli and Director Anderson joined me at the AMSD legislative preview, and it was the first time that it was virtual. So 2020, 2021, a lot of first times for everything, but we had 220 attendees, and that included superintendents, school board members, legislators, and their legislative staff. So it was a really good turnout. We had a board that, sorry, we had a small group that talked to us, led by Representative Paul Kozelka, Senator Paul Kozelka, Senator Susan Kent, Representative Ron Krisha, and House Speaker Melissa Hortman. We were also joined by Governor Tim Walz, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and Minnesota Department of Education Commissioner Mary Catherine Ricker. And it was a really great opportunity to hear where the legislature might be headed, but also to communicate to AMSD changes that we want and directions we hope they will entertain. So that went really well. I also had an opportunity to yesterday, spent most of the day at a meeting for Minnesota social studies standards. And it was a very different type of meeting with the events of Washington, D.C., the discussion, the need to, the need to make sure that social studies has great standards was ever apparent. And, with that, the group was actually asked for a little more time to make their final recommendations. The first draft is out, and it was an incomplete draft at that, but it is out, and we do ask people to continue to send us feedback. The second draft will go out in a month or so. At least that's the plan. There'll probably be a third draft, but we don't have that okayed yet. So, what I will say is that we listen to, I know for me personally, I listen to all feedback that I get, okay? And whether I agree with it or not, I listen to it, I take it, I internalize it, and I try to make the best decisions I can, and as do everyone on that committee. There has been some there have been threats made against some of the people on the committee, and I'm just going to say, that's not the way to get what you want. All right, so I'm just going to come out and say it. You start threatening people on the committee, we just start digging in. All right, so we can disagree without being disagreeable. Okay, so and that's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Curtis. Anyone else? Kitty?
Mine's a much lighter update, I guess. I had an opportunity to attend the RAMS registration session for Central Park students. And it was really exciting to see how many of the families were able to be present in the virtual format and the multiple ways available this year for families to access support and resources. This is one area in particular that I hope we, as we move to return to better, that there's some great lessons learned and opportunities from that. I also have to add that I know in the newsletter we got from the high school, they talked about various social and emotional learning videos, and I had a chance to watch those. And again, it's just really impressive at the way we're now offering virtually some additional support and really trying to make sure that students have multiple ways to access what they need. The last thing I wanted to mention was went to the Falcon Heights PTA meeting last night, and it was very interesting to see how the PTA has adapted, just like during the school day where we're seeing a lot of changes and trying to figure out the new way of working. Same was true for the PTA. They were talking about, they got a request, for example, for a virtual field trip that they were able to meet, but they were putting out an ask to teachers on what other ideas they have. If they had a little bit more funds, what could they do in this virtual environment that would really help and support. And so it was nice to see the continued, PTA support that's provided to try to help our students. There were questions and discussion around certainly the transition. It was interesting to hear that they were working on some voice amplification systems for teachers, which I hadn't even occurred to me with the face shield, how that was going to be a challenge. And trying to use document cameras and TV screens for making sure every student can see what the teacher is doing with the spread out in the room. There was a question raised about the childcare with secondary, the assumption being made there that the asynchronous day would not be the same between high school and elementary school, and the principal was able to share that in fact it is. And there was a lot of appreciation for that because of the older students providing childcare for some of the younger students. So they were very glad to hear about that we heard about earlier this evening. Some discussions around some of the current events and what's happening and how it was handled in the schools, and trying to help students process what's occurring. So that was it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kitty. Anyone else? Todd.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback a bit on Clerk Johnson did a good job reviewing the AMSD legislative preview. I was very impressed with the turnout. As he mentioned, well over 200, and the number of legislators that were there, and they were all introduced themselves and their districts. Senator John Marty from our area was there. Senator Chuck Uyghur was there as well. And I'll just mention that I was really impressed with the very beginning. There was a superintendent panel and going over AMSD's platform and some of the priorities. I'm very impressed with the time and the energy that the group has come up with the priorities. One of them, stabilizing education funding and making sure that lessening the impact of COVID-19 to our schools. That definitely hit home, I think, with everybody. And they also did mention the school finance working group report. So again, as Clerk Johnson mentioned, it was a really wonderful preview of the upcoming session. And then just briefly, I had an opportunity to attend the DCAC meeting last night. We broke out into some smaller sessions and discussed the world's best workforce report. That report had already been presented previously to the school board, but we went through it on the DCAC. Jake also gave us an update on the transition that we went through tonight, the update to the in-person learning that will be happening in our elementary schools. And Jake also gave us an update on some of the planning that is starting to move forward with some of our Minnesota accountability tests and some of the assessments moving forward, like the MCA testing, and reminded us of the ACT test for our juniors and seniors on March 30th. That will be coming up. So a good update with that. That's it.
Thank you, Todd. Rose or Frank, anything? Frank?
Edgerton had a community conversation or community meeting last night. It was very well attended. 35 to 40 families were there, and a lot of that thanks to the simultaneous translation that was handled. So that was very good. It was mostly questions about about the transition. And I was interested to find out that as far as the data that they have now at Edgerton, fully a half of the students will be staying in distance learning, and that is a testament to how well distance learning is going on. And another thing I learned from Brian Colin, talking to him later, is that there's a lot more engagement of families. It's something we've been seeing in other contexts, and so that he is getting many more requests of particular teachers that parents would like students to go with because they've been seeing these teachers in their homes. There's more experience with them, and therefore the whole relationship between families and the school has been improved enormously. So that's really a very good sign, I think. I wanted also to mention Kitty and Curtis and I have been attending the RTR meetings, the Roadmap to Return meetings, and we haven't really. You've been, of course, hearing all of the results of those committee meetings, but we haven't really reported it to the three members who don't have the privilege of being there. And I just wanted to say that it's a very good, it's a well-run committee meeting. It's diverse in that we have people from the union, we have people representing teachers, we have parents who are representing themselves and their children, and I think that a lot of good has come out of it, and I think that our roadmap to return that we just okayed is going to be as smooth as possible, thanks to that committee and the work that committee has done, and the work that the rest of the administration has done, leveraging that committee. So, yeah, that's it.
Great to hear. Rose, anything from you tonight?
I just say that I had a chance to also join the AMSD session. So that was great. Glad to know that our work does not stop, right? Just because of the pandemic, and that we could do this virtually. So.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't really have anything. So with that, what we'll do next is we'll adjourn this regular meeting and then reconvene in the study session. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Let's please hold ourselves to no more than 5 minutes because we do have guests at our first item on the study session agenda. So